So what do you do when you feel that you've sold your soul to the devil? I think the first thing we need to do to approach this problem is that we need to strip these ideas of the religious context. Because there's a lot of mystery and vagueness about these ideas, and people can kind of just project whatever understanding they have onto them. And this can kind of make things more confusing and more difficult to come to clarity. And so we have to understand that this idea of Satan is simply the negative force within us, within our mind, that causes us to fall to lower states of consciousness, to lower states of being. And it does this by, it causes us to value our base instincts and desires above all else. And by doing this, this is what it means to sell your soul to Satan. If I value food above everything else, you can see that there's something wrong with that. If I value sex above all else, I become a slave to this instinct. And so whatever is at the top of your hierarchy of values, that is, for all intents and purposes, your God. And whatever is your God will determine your experience in this reality. It will determine the amount of well-being that you experience. One way I like to look at things is that we do not get to choose not to be a slave in this life, in this form, but we do get to choose what we are a slave to. So I say, be very careful in choosing a master. Because if you choose a bad master, you will have a bad life and you will have a bad experience. And if you choose a good master, you will have a good life and a good experience. And this idea of selling your soul to Satan simply means that you have, for the time being, allowed yourself to become a slave to a bad master, to the lower instincts, and that you have valued the gratification of base instincts above all else. And by doing this, you will, with 100% certainty, fall to lower states of being, lower states of consciousness. And that is what the idea of hell means. It is simply the lowest states of consciousness. And I've said before that hell is synonymous with separation, and heaven is synonymous with union. And what we are talking about is separation and union with and from consciousness. And whatever our attention is focused on, that is what we are giving our energy to. That is what we are giving our consciousness to. And so if we are giving our consciousness, the most valuable resource in existence, to things that are not important, to things that we shouldn't be, well, then we are wasting our consciousness, our energy. And so, for instance, when it comes to food, there's a practical amount of energy that we should focus in that direction. And you see, the problem is when we focus our energy in that direction more than is necessary. And don't necessarily just agree or disagree with what I'm saying. Experience this for yourself. When you eat too much food, you know you've eaten too much. You know you've overindulged because it makes you feel sick. And it is often a psychological thing that causes us to want to eat more than is necessary, or indulge in any base instinct more than is necessary. We may come to understand why we overindulge in base instincts. It's because we all go through this life conditioned and traumatized. And sometimes our instincts become maladapted. Sometimes they become disturbed. And so if we never address the underlying trauma or disturbed instinct, then we can fall into these traps of giving our power away to forces that do not serve our best interests. And you will know for yourself which area in your life that needs to be addressed. And so if you feel or have fear that you have sold your soul to the devil, don't get so caught up in the details and the story that is going on in your head, but focus on the message. What does this mean? And all it means is that you have temporarily given your power away to something that doesn't serve you, that is stealing your energy, and that at any moment you can take your power back. And plus, your soul was never yours to begin with, so it's not like you can really sell it to something else. But so long as we stay afraid of this story, this idea that we are telling ourselves, then that fear continues to keep us stuck in lower states of consciousness. And so begin ridding yourself of all fear, guilt, shame, self-hatred, because these emotions are doing nothing to help you. In the beginning, in the very beginning, we might be able to use these negative emotions as emotional motivators, but beyond that, they do nothing but keep you a slave. They keep you in these lower states of being. They keep you in this mode of self-destruction, because the more fear, guilt, and shame that we experience, the more we don't really like ourselves all that much, and there's this unconscious tendency to want to destroy ourselves. And we do this through our addictions and our vices. All addictions and bad habits and self-destructive behaviors, it's just indirect suicide. And so one of the key points to deal with this is to begin practicing loving yourself, having compassion for yourself, because you have within you a power that is so great, it is beyond anything this world has to offer. And if you do not love yourself, then you are missing a great opportunity, because this human form, this is the vehicle for consciousness. And so we must love the vehicle, promote and build it, so that consciousness may flow through our bodies with ease, so we may be a divine vessel for the flow of life. And in this, we create harmony in the world. We create balance. But so long as we are suffering with these negative emotions, we do nothing but to create imbalance and disharmony in the world around us. And so you really need to think long and hard about this. Think about, are there people in your life that you love, that you want to see grow and become the best version of themselves? Are there people that you care for and people that care about you? And if this is the case, well, then you really have no choice but to love yourself. Because by not loving yourself, you create suffering in the lives of the people you love. And some people need to love themselves as they love others. And some other people need to love others as they love themselves. And you can figure out for yourself which one of those two people you are. Because love is the cure for for evil. And you see, when we get caught in this story about the devil and selling our soul, and this is often because our body is trying to communicate to us that there is a problem, and it is trying to communicate the message that I spoke of previously, that we are valuing certain things more than we should, more than they deserve. But because our body, our unconscious mind, is blind, it's often a poor communicator. And so it tries to get our attention, it tries to convey this message in a way that is not always so helpful. But instead of listening to the message, we become fearful of the thoughts, and we call them negative. And then we get lost in the story that we tell ourselves that is going on. And it's like drowning in the ocean in this storm. And that is why it is so important for us to create some space in our minds, to not react so quickly to things around us. Because in this space, we create the opportunity to consciously act. In this space, we create clarity, and we see past the illusion. So you see all ideas of demons, they're all just imaginary. But because people believe them, and they feed them their fear, their energy, they feed them with their negative emotions, they believe these demonic entities into existence. And so what was once imaginary is now very real. And these demonic forces have the power to create havoc in the world. But evil cannot enter our lives without us allowing them in. And we allow them in through our fear, through our negative emotions, through our beliefs. And we have to understand that there are a small group of people in this world who are actively feeding these demons on purpose, because they want to see the destruction of the world, but they're just playing their roles as it was intended. And so do not allow these negative forces into your life with unnecessary negative emotions. Take your focus and point it on what is good. Because when you're too busy focusing on what is good, there is no space for what is bad. If your thoughts are always positive, there's no room for negative thoughts. And if your thoughts are always negative, there's no room for positive thoughts. And you see, the mind will use many tricks to get you into believing the story it wants you to believe, so that you can continue feeding it your negative emotions. But it has no power other than what you give to it, because you were always in control. You always had the power. But we just tend to give it away to forces that don't have our best interest. And at any moment, you can take your power back, because you can choose what you wish to focus your attention and energy on. Because there is positive and negative in all things. The universe is perfectly balanced. And so if you choose to focus on what is wrong, you are right. But if you choose to focus on what is good, well, then you are also right. Both perspectives may be true. So it's not about what the facts are, it's not about what the truth is necessarily. It's about what truth do you want to experience. Because we create our realities in our mind. And we project onto this three-dimensional world. And we tend to fool ourselves into believing that the three-dimensional world is the real world. But that's not how we act. Buddha said, with our thoughts, we create our reality. And with this knowledge, we should rejoice, because this means that we are not at the mercy to the external environment, to the physical world. This means we can create any reality we desire. But so long as we continue focusing on the world around us and reacting to it, we will do nothing but to reaffirm this reality, and it is often not in our best interest. And so don't allow any story in your head or any so-called fact of your environment fool you into giving your power away. We must retain our power so that we can create a more harmonious and loving world around us. And every being, every person, every human has their role to play. Each day we cast our vote by what we choose to focus our attention on. So ask yourself, are you focusing on what is good